The Cincinnati Reds absolutely have to get a deal done with catcher number 1, Tyler Stephenson. We'll tell you why on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Reds podcast. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We've been podcasting about this team for a combined 14 seasons, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team, your Cincinnati Reds, every single day. And on today's podcast, we're going to tell you exactly what the Reds have to do, the one thing that they can do against Paul Skenes on Thursday night as the Reds and Pirates begin a 4-game set in Pittsburgh. That's coming up later on in the show. In a few minutes, we're going to discuss a specific number that the Reds lineup needs to shoot for pretty much every single night based on a current statistic that is overwhelmingly in favor of them. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. But we will begin today's episode by discussing the fact that the Boston Red Sox just extended their number 1 prospect who just got called up this year to a long-term contract, and why the Reds haven't done that with catcher number 1, because obviously he is the guy. He is the most important player outside of Elly De La Cruz, who we have said time and time again, Scott Boras ain't going to sign nothing for the next 5 years. And so it's going to take, basically Elly going to free agency number 1, or number 2, a complete reimagining of the economics of baseball for the Cincinnati Reds to sign Elly De La Cruz to a contract extension. Therefore, you go to the next most important guy, and that's clearly Tyler Stephenson.
It is Tyler Stephenson. And you ask, what do they got to do? What has to happen? They have to pony up the money, because what I know is that Tyler Stephenson is willing to sign a deal. Tyler Stephenson is willing to have the conversation. The Reds did approach him, but it sounds like they made that initial approach where you don't really mean what's happening, and what you're going to say is going to get rejected. And the number was so low that Tyler was basically like, get out of here with that. The Reds have to come back. They have to be serious, and they have to lock up Tyler Stephenson. And here's why. If they don't get a deal done with him before the beginning of next season, he has to be traded. And that will just be sad for me for many reasons. Reason number 1 is there is nobody else remotely ready to go to be a major league catcher for this team. Now, they locked up Jose Trevino, and that was smart. That appears now to, in hindsight, be a really smart deal. But you have seen that with prolonged playing time, Jose Trevino has come back to earth. He's not that offensive starting number 1 catcher that we kind of gotten used to around here with Ty Steve. They need to lock him up. They need to sign him. And if they do, well, now your catching battery there with Stevenson and Trevino locked up for multiple years, it's solid. You don't have to worry about it. These guys can build continuity with these pitchers. It puts the Reds in their best position possible to compete and get better each and every year.
And I was going to say, because the Trevino extension, if that is what the Reds are looking at this and saying, okay, we can afford to lose Tyler Stephenson, that is foolish, because everyday playing time for Jose Trevino will really expose him at the plate. Defensively, I love him, and I love what he does for the pitching staff. How he frames pitches is so elite and awesome, but he's not the best at controlling the run game, and he's not the greatest at the plate. We saw a really early renaissance in his hitting, and that has come back down to earth in a big, big way. Since July 10th, he has 3 hits, just 3, and 2 of those came 2 nights ago against the Cubs. So I think we've really got to understand that deal makes sense for the backup catcher. They need to extend Tyler Stephenson, and I don't think that it has to approach. And the reason that this conversation and this thought process was brought along to us is that the Boston Red Sox signed an 8-year, $130 million deal with Roman Anthony, their number 1 prospect who plays center field for them and is amazing. He's going to be one of the top players in Major League Baseball for years to come. I don't necessarily know that the Reds need to sign an 8-year deal with Tyler Stephenson. I think that you're talking like a 4 or 5-year deal.
Yeah, because let's break that down a little bit. They're buying out all of Anthony's arbitration years. They're creating financial stability,
and a couple of free agency years.
Right, and a couple of free agent years. So it's stability for the Red Sox. It's controlling the price of what's going to happen, and it's getting you a couple extra years at maybe a little bit of a discount in order to have that stability. The Reds now are in the tail end of Tyler Stephenson's team control. This is a different beast. You're talking about mostly free agent years you're trying to buy. So the money is going to have to be right, because I'm going to tell you right now, if Tyler Stephenson hits the open market, dude is going to get paid. It is coming. So if the Reds want to keep him in-house and not have to bid against all the other guys out there, they're going to have to pay the money. They're going to have to write the check. And, I don't know, Jeff. I don't know if the Castellinis have it in them. But if they do have it in them, now is the time. This is the guy to lock up right now.
If they're serious about this ball club, and then there's always questions about that with many of evidences as to why you ask those questions about that. But if they're serious about building a contender, Tyler Stephenson is one of those core pieces, because he is such a good offensive catcher. And I don't think people understand, because I've seen a lot of people pushing back on the idea of keeping him here long-term, because they're like, well, this and that and this reason and that reason. And they're like, he could be batting better. He could be doing all of this stuff. The baseline for a good hitting catcher is so much lower than where Tyler Stephenson is. And he is one of those guys that, man, when he gets on a hot streak, he can carry a ball club. There aren't many catchers out there that can do that. So that is a luxury that you can have, and a guy that you can put into the DH spot whenever you want to give his knees a rest, but you don't want to take his bat out of the lineup because it is so good. It can make its way into that. I think it's very interesting to see, and I think that we misunderstand Tyler Stephenson a lot as a fan base because of the value that he provides. It's just not seen that much. Like, we are talking about not the same level, but maybe a step below what JT Realmuto provided for the Philadelphia Phillies for so long. He's started to decline. He's hit that period of his career that Father Time starts to win. But that's what we're talking about with Tyler Stephenson. You get him locked up for 4 or 5 more years, then you lock up the catching position as you know it for the Cincinnati Reds until Alfredo Duno is ready.
That's exactly right. There's nobody ready now. That's the point. They're way down in the system. This still works with the model that Nick Krall continues to preach. You lock up catcher. You lock up these 2 catchers, give your prospects time to develop. And we talk about this, and we talk about how we don't want to talk about it. But all these other guys, the Ellie De La Cruzes, the Matt McClains, the Spencer Steers, the Noel V. Martes, all of these guys, odds are the Reds aren't going to extend those dudes. We're going to enjoy the time that they're here. Everybody settle down. Stop typing on the comment section. Stop. We're going to enjoy those guys while they're here. And if they're truly following the Tampa model, this is where Cincinnati is going to have to adjust, guys. They will get traded with 5 years of, or with 1 to 2 years of team control remaining.
Do you think
you'll start to see those trades?
This just hit me because it gives me a little bit of pause. I don't know if I'm overreacting, if it gives me a little bit of pause thinking this, but we constantly hear the old adage of draft and develop. That's what the Reds have to do. Draft and develop from within. Does it give you pause that it's not draft, develop, and retain? It's just draft and develop?
It does, but that's not who they are. And they're telling us that's not who they are. The Castellinis are telling you we're not going to retain. We're not paying that money. The cabbage business ain't as good as it used to be. We're not paying that money. Nick Krall is telling you we're not paying that money. We're going to develop. We're going to bring prospects up. We're going to train. We're going to churn. We're going to use our advantages in team control. We're going to flip them. We're going to bring in a new batch. We're going to rinse. We're going to repeat. We're going to do it all over again. That is the model that they have adopted. Thus far, Nick Krall has pretty much stuck to it. Minor ads and the deadline moves were minor ads. We liked them, but they were minor moves for not a long time of money commitment. So outside of Key Brian Hayes, which was interesting to me, but you look at what they're doing, and they're doing what they keep telling us they're going to do. We keep acting surprised. And maybe it's because they've said a lot of things over the years that they haven't followed through with.
Well, they changed the plan on a dime.
With this version of the Reds, they said this is who we're going to be, and that's who they've been. So, I look at this and you look around that room, right? And I'm sure there's people out there going, no, it's Andrew Abbott you got to lock up. No, it's Nick Lodolo or whoever it is. It's one of those guys. No, it's not, because they're going to trade those guys. Those guys are going to get traded when they have a year of team. And they're going to get a haul. Yeah, I know. I hear you guys. They're going to get a haul when they trade them. because they have to restock. They have to restock because, they got lucky this last time. Most of the time, that many of your prospects don't hit, and the Reds got lucky. A lot of the prospects hit. But when they start this churn, they're going to bring in 4 guys in a deal. Only one of those players is going to make the majors. The other 3 are going to wash out. They're going to be a problem. That's how you do the churn. That's what Nick Kral's looking at. That's what they're going to do. They don't have that luxury at catcher because there's just not a lot of inventory out there. So that's why we're saying you sign Stevenson, but then you run your play. And again, don't let that take away from your fun of the now. Enjoy the team now. Enjoy the players now. Enjoy Ellie now. And, will he get traded? Yeah. If the Reds don't completely screw this up, yeah, he's eventually going to get traded. And that'll be sad, and we'll get a lot in return, and we'll do it all over again, and we'll find the next version of the surprise Ellie. I don't know. But that's how it's got to work, because that's how they've said it's going to work. So we have to accept it. There's nothing we can do about it.
No, and that's the truth. But to bring it back to the now, kind of shifting gears a little bit, we talked about contracts. Let's talk about the now, because right now the Reds are telling us there's a certain number that they've got to reach on the scoreboard every time out, and we'll tell you why that's so important coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up and college football isn't far behind. It's the perfect time to lock in your season-long, more or less, picks for the 2025 football season, all before week 1 kicks off. Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, PrizePicks makes it easy to get in the game. PrizePicks is easy to use. You can jump onto their app. I have been able to make my picks more or less, and all the while be getting ready for the game, grabbing my snacks, pouring myself a beverage, and it's all done before I'm able to flop down in my recliner. It's just that easy to use. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineup after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right. You're going to get $50 for your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, run your game. Make sure you're subscribed. That way you don't miss any of the great Reds content we've got coming your way. Me and Jeff here on the Locked On Reds podcast, Monday through Friday. Tim Daniel after each and every Reds game, live with the Reds postcast. We've got you covered all season long. Click subscribe so you don't miss anything special we drop in the feed along the way as well. All right, Jeff. You found a stat that kind of puts it all in perspective of what the Reds have done this year. As frustrating as they've been, as wonky as it's been about how they does things, this number tracks.
It's funny because I think that most fans would look at Wednesday's game and say, boy, this is just more of the same from this lineup. They're horrible. They can't score runs. Fun fact, in 66 ball games so far this season, the Cincinnati Reds have scored 4 or more runs. When they do that, they are 50-16. 50 of their 60 wins come when they score 4 runs or more. And that's not saying when they hit a certain amount of home runs. That's not saying when they have a certain number of extra base hits. The name of the game is to score more runs than the other team. And while we kind of disagree with how the organization has put their team together, and how their organization has put their lineup together and to accomplish this goal, they are still managing to accomplish it, albeit we wish they hit more home runs. But to understand this team is to say, once they get to 4, they win more.
I remember back in the spring training, maybe even as far back as the offseason, I feel like you set an over-under at like 4.5 of runs this team should score. And here they are, right? The number is 4. So you were pretty close. It seems like a no-brainer. Well, yeah, they score runs, they win. That means the pitching's been good. You have to hold the other team to less than 4 for that to matter. They've gotten the pitching. You look around at what they're doing. This home run conversation that continues to just creep up. And are home runs bad? Are they rally killers, according to Hall of Famer Barry Larkin? No, they need to hit for power. You can score runs in bunches. I mean, in this day and age of baseball, it is oftentimes hard to scratch out 4 hits in a row in an inning. It just doesn't happen. And if it gets away from a pitcher, you can best believe that after that third batter, the manager will come and get them. It is really hard to play small ball in modern baseball. So the Reds' lack of a bopper and still being able to score 4 or more runs has been pretty impressive, actually. I would like to see somebody go on a little bit of a home run heater. There is still some power on this team, although it really hasn't manifested. There are guys that can do it. When Spencer Steer gets hot, he can do it. Ty Steve gets hot, he can do it. Austin Hayes has showed us that he could do it in bunches when he gets hot. So there are guys that can play a long ball. Now would be a really good time for the Reds to get a couple guys, go on a heater and start hitting long balls and score these runs in bunches and help move this team forward.
That's going to be an interesting thing tonight, and we'll get into that a little bit against Paul Skenes and really against the Pirates pitching staff as a whole. I think long balls could change the game when it comes to guys like that who don't give it up very often because they don't give up a lot of base runners. There's definitely pitchers that the Reds run into that do not allow you to have a nice, rotation of guys hitting the base and coming around to score. So how do you change the game in that notion? I remember, Steve, was it 2021? I think it was 2021 that there were people that were complaining that they scored too many of their runs, potentially, like percentage-wise, from the homer. We've come full circle now where they don't score enough of their runs based on the homer. So I think it's kind of hilarious how time seems to be a circle that at some point you're going to be complaining about the very thing that is opposite of what you complained about a few seasons ago. And that's just who we are as baseball fans, right? We just like to complain about certain things because y'all know that if they be hitting too many home runs this year, boy, we'd be hearing it. They don't string enough hits together. They don't do the get the guy, get them on, get them over, get them in. That there's got to be a happy medium here where we're like, look, they're still averaging a top 10 level of run scoring. They're averaging over 4.5 runs per game right now, and that is 10th in Major League Baseball.
See, that's where you made your mistake. You said happy. Reds country is never happy. We're never happy. We're never happy. I have often said that the only thing consistent about the Reds is they're inconsistent, and the consistent thing about Reds country is it's always mad. There's always a segment that is mad, and I think that's what drives the fan base. I don't know, but for me, you're right. The happy medium, the middle ground. You need to be able to get guys on base. You need to be able to set up RBI opportunities. And then you need to score 3 runs with 1 swing. That's modern baseball. Like it or not, that is how baseball works nowadays. And they may make tweaks. They may make changes somewhere along the way where it's not quite as dependent on that. But right now it is. So the best you can hope for, because there's no other power hitters walking through that door. Adam Dunn's not warming up. He's not coming in. It's just not going to happen. So you've got to deal with the power you've got on the bench. Ellie has been a little quiet power-wise, and he might be due as well. So you get 3 of these guys in the lineup that are capable of bashing the ball. Start bashing the ball right now in a time where the Reds really need to win some games and put themselves in a position to remain relevant through September into October. Now is the time. It's the time for 1 or 2 of these guys to really go on a heater and have one of those weeks where Ellie De La Cruz hits 5 home runs in 7 games, where Spencer Steer hits 4 over the next 5 games, something like that. They need one of those runs from somebody in the lineup to kind of propel the team forward. That's what we're looking for from someone. I'm not sure who that guy is going to be. I would love to see Ellie break out with a power spurt. It's been a minute since he's one of those, and I would like to see that.
Yeah, and I think it's intriguing. Like, if you ask people who has the most amount of homers on the team, everybody would say Ellie. So who's the second most? That's the interesting part, because it's a dude who has been hot lately, a guy who has built his season back up to where we would expect it to be. He's not quite there yet. Still think he's got work to do overall to make the season look like we would expect. But Spencer Steer is number 2 on the team.
The mash and mashed potato.
The mash and mashed potato. Yeah, exactly. And I just think it's interesting because there's so many different ways to understand how a team really succeeds. And part of this is it's helped me understand a couple of different things, because I'm the kind of guy that whenever a pitcher has a game where he gives up 3 or 4 runs, I'm like, yeah, but he didn't do all that horrible. Honestly, those are the kind of outings that a starting pitcher for the Cincinnati Reds cannot have because of how this team is set up. They have built their pitching staff to be really good. And on the whole, this season, like I mentioned, they've averaged over 4.5 runs per game. They've averaged giving up 4.1 runs per game. So they're kind of right there. And that's why their record is where it is that their pitching is just good enough to outweigh their hitting. So on days when they're giving up more than 4 runs, those are the games that are going to be really tough for them to win because they score 4 runs, 66 out of the, oh boy, now I'm doing math, out of the 116. Anyway, whatever. We'll get out of the math part of this segment because that's just a bad idea. But on the whole, they've got to have starting pitching that allows 3 runs or less just about every time out. And I think that they've got those guys. It's just on the games when they don't do that, that's really where we've got to understand, all right, lineup's got its work cut out for it.
You know, it's interesting. You had me looking at the home run list, Jeff, and it's Ellie and Spencer, followed by Matt McClain. Then you get Austin Hayes.
Kind of where we expected it to be.
Right. Yeah. Austin Hayes and TJ Friedel round out the top 5. But you know who's tied for number 6? It's Steve tied with your boy Will Benson, who is currently hanging out in Louisville.
Don't know why he's down
It's
there.
been a very weird power year. I'd also just like to point out that Key Brian Hayes has more home runs than Santiago Espinal.
And you and I have as many home runs as Santiago Espinal does. But I know this, Steve, the lineup and how it produces is misunderstood. But moving forward, it's got to keep doing what it's doing to support this pitching staff. And I say that knowing the challenge that they face starting tonight and really for the first couple of games here against Pittsburgh. But Thursday night, man, the Reds got one thing that they need to do to beat Paul Skenes. The best way to get down to the ballpark or get down to the football stadium with football heating up too is with GameTime. Steve and I use GameTime just about every time we go down to the ballpark because they've got great last-minute deals on tickets everywhere in the stadium. Sometimes you can find some really good deals. Maybe the weather's not so great, but for whatever reason you're down by the stadium, you're going to find some really good zone deals on some seats you may not necessarily buy tickets for in advance because GameTime's got amazing deals. Plus, you can see the view from your seat if you're going on the road with the Reds or if you're going to a brand new ballpark or a brand new stadium, and you can see exactly what your view looks like. GameTime makes sure that you know everything about your tickets before you hit the purchase button because they take the guesswork out of buying tickets. That's over on GameTime, and when you download the app today, use the promo code LOCKDOWNMLB, and you'll save $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. That's over on the GameTime app today. They got the last-minute deals at the lowest prices, guaranteed. If you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcast app. We're on all of them out there. Go check us out today. And when you're done with today's show, go check out the Locked On MLB feed because they got Locked On MLB Game Night. They watch every game every night so that you don't have to. All right, Steve, Reds got the Pirates starting for 4 games starting tonight, and they're facing Paul Skenes, and there's one thing that they can do to beat him because, quite frankly, I don't think that you can beat him individually. You have to understand that this is a 9-inning ball game in which you have to beat the Pirates bullpen. So you have to get that Pirates bullpen into this game earlier than they would otherwise do. So I think you've got to force this to where he's at to like 100 pitches in the 6th inning. You got to foul off a ton of pitches. You got to fight for at-bats. Even if you only score 1 run or if you get shut out for those 6 innings, just force him to throw a ton of pitches and get into that Pirates bullpen that employs guys like you and me.
Yeah, plate discipline, Jeff. Plate discipline. Yes. You have to foul them off. You have to fight them off, and you can't swing at the trash pitches. They can't swing at things out of the zone. Make him push to 3-2 counts. Make him work. Foul things off. You got to get 20 to 25 pitches an inning out of him. He cannot have 3 and 4 pitch innings. If he has 3 and 4 pitch innings, this game is done. The Pirates are going to win this game tonight if that's what happens. The Reds have to battle. I like their chances much better against Keller and the rest of this Pirates rotation. Tonight is the game. If they could battle and steal this game tonight, that makes a big difference in winning this series already, I think, because this is really the most difficult challenge of the 4-game set. So, I think the Reds can go out there and do that. Several of guys we talked about in the last segment have had really good at bats lately. They just have to keep doing that and not get caught up in the, oh my God, it's Paul Skenes. Just do your thing. Don't change the way you're doing things. Don't change your approach. Go battle. They can get Skenes out of this game, and they get Skenes out of this game, they can win this game.
Right, because when you look at the Pirates on the whole, like they're actually a pretty good pitching staff, and it's mostly because of Paul Skenes and his ERA that is at 2, and the fact that he has over 5 WAR already this season. He has a losing record, Steve. He's 6-8. He's had starts where he gives up 1 run and he loses because this Pirates team doesn't score. So this is another thing where I really look at the pitching staff, and I look at Brady Singer especially on Thursday night, and say this Reds pitching staff has to be on its game. They can't come into this and just start lobbing pitches over the middle and just thinking that guys are going to get themselves out. They've got to have some really good games in them. And I kind of am okay, and this is a mild take, I'm not going to lie, but I'm kind of okay with how the final game at Wrigley went, simply because the Reds saved their bullpen. Luis May and Yasser Zulueta were the only guys that came out of the bullpen on Wednesday afternoon. And so because of that, a lot of guys are feeling fresh coming into this Pirates series. Tito's going to have to pull the right strings in all these cases here, because you're going to be able to beat the Pirates in the margins, but you cannot beat yourself in the margins against the Pirates.
You know, which Brady Singer do we get tonight, Jeff? That's the real question. Do we get the guy that was pitching against Miami, Colorado, and Washington? The guy that gave up 7 hits, couple runs against Miami, 7 hits,
teams on the
3
same
runs.
level as Pirates,
right?
Yeah.
7 hits, 3 runs against Colorado. 5 hits, 7 earned runs, and 2 1/3 against the Nationals. You know, that's where he kind of hit the valley, peaks and valleys. Well, there you go. Since then, though, you know, Tampa, he went out through 7 1/3, 3 hits, 1 run. And then against Atlanta, 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs. So that's the Brady Singer that needs to show up. That trend needs to continue of 6 or 7 innings pitched and not allowing runs, 1 run maximum. Keep the Reds in the game, get Paul Skenes out of the game, and let the offense do their thing. That's really the playbook for tonight. I don't know that we can break it down any more simply or succinct than that. That's what's got to happen for the Reds to win this ball game tonight. Get through it, get to the next 3 where you have a much better opportunity to take this series.
Yeah, because there's not like a weakness in Paul Skenes' game. I'm just gonna say it. Paul Skenes is the best pitcher in the game right now because he doesn't give up base runners, he doesn't give up long balls, and he gets a lot of strikeouts, and he doesn't waste a lot of pitches to do it. I think one of the key things with any pitcher is, do you miss bats and miss barrels? And he misses both. It's not a either or with him. He's just so good at making sure that guys are never on top of the at bat. And so that's kind of got to be the mantra with this one, is the plate discipline. And then when you move on, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, he has the best ERA in baseball at 2.02 in 23 games pitched. If you like ERA plus things like that, he has the best in baseball at 2.08. His FIP is 2.41. He leads the National League. Hits per 9, 6.1, leads baseball. Home runs per 9, 0.5, leads baseball. And for good measure, strikeouts per 9 at 10, walks per 9 at 2.2. Paul Skenes is elite. If you like pitching, you want to watch this game tonight. Just
I'm
from a fan of pitching.
I love watching.
It's going to be a fun watch, just to watch a great do his thing. It's why we talk about back in the day, having really enjoyed watching guys like Verlander when he was in his prime, watching Clayton Kershaw when he was in his prime. These are elite talents, and we're going to see one pitch against the Reds tonight.
And I've seen the Reds do it. And again, this is like years past, so I'm not like equating for the current lineup here, but I've seen baseball players holding a bat in a Reds uniform beat elite pitchers like Clayton Kershaw. I've been to Great American Ballpark where the Reds scored 4 runs off of Kershaw, and that felt like a day we should have a parade for. So when it comes to Paul Skenes, like, are we going to have a parade-worthy day? I don't think so, but we're just going to have one of those days where you survive and you force into this bullpen, because David Bednar isn't here anymore. You don't have to worry about him. And if the Pirates don't have a lead, I don't think we see Dennis Santana, who's their other main relief pitcher. You don't have to worry about the big name guys that when you look back on this season and you see, okay, you've got the Bednars, you've got the Fergusons of the world. Those guys are gone. They are not in town anymore for Pittsburgh. There's a whole bunch of other people that they're trying to run through there and see if they're going to be part of their team for next year. The Pirates are kind of in that, let's see what we got now for the future mode, like they are every year. But we'll see. We'll see exactly who they got, because there's going to be some names that we're going to be like, who's this guy? All right, let's see what the Reds got against this dude. They cannot, do what the Reds do and make no-name dudes feel good about themselves on the mound.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Listen, Jeff, we're running to the end here. We didn't get really into the rest of the games. We're going to be back in your feeds tomorrow, folks, talking about hopefully a Reds surprising win against the Pirates and Skenes tonight. We'll get you set for the rest of this series. The Reds got to take this series. 4-game set, folks. They need to win 3 of 4. I expect them to win 3 of 4. And really, Jeff, anything less than 3 of 4 is a failure right now where this Reds team is and where it 100%. Needs to be going. So we're going to continue to watch it. We're going to continue to be in your feeds. We're going to gather up the news, the notes, the information, the rumors, and the reports, because we are going to keep you locked on Reds every single day.
Fries on sandwiches. Why is that like their thing? Like,
they're not very creative over there.
Eat a sandwich and then eat the fries. You don't have to eat them all at the same time.
Because they don't use utensils.
Let's go Pittsburgh.
We just made